The Navy needs Maverick. The kid needs Maverick. That's why I fought for you. That's why you're still here.
There's something modern Hollywood critics do that I find suspicious and a bit cynical. It's the way they react to patriotic movies these days, a reaction that seems out of touch, even oblivious to the general direction our culture is moving.
I'm sure me pointing out that Top Gun being filled with nationalism and militarism doesn't come as a surprise to you.
These ties are so historical and go back to the very beginning of the film industry.
But first, to define what I mean by a patriotic movie, I'm talking about any story presented to us on screen which depicts the American military action, or American military history in a positive and celebratory light. One which frames not just the soldiers, but the mission itself as an objective good. In other words, this would be any film about the United States which does not offer itself up on bended knee, hat in hand with a groveling apology about the alleged sins of our past. When they see such a story on the big screen, one that dares to buck this humiliated and pathetic, miserable trend, a movie which instead embraces American pride and American exceptionalism with a jingoistic flair and zero apologies, critics in digital print media and their YouTube counterparts are quick to remind us that what we are actually seeing is nothing but a big commercial. It's just pro-America military recruitment propaganda. Over the course of the movie's theatrical run, these same critics will carpet bomb the internet with editorials about the dangers of normalizing and justifying American imperialism, the evils of American colonialism, and the secret agenda of filmmakers who collaborate with the Pentagon to deceive young men through cinema into believing that joining the armed forces will offer them a fulfilling life of adventure. This term propaganda gets thrown around a lot on social media, and almost always with a negative connotation.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
And that's because the subtext intended by the critic using the word propaganda is always conspiratorial. It's the idea that we don't see what they see, that we're being lied to, that what we find wholesome and good is actually rotten to the core. That core, in this case, being America. Such was the situation, of course, with Top Gun Maverick. After a record-breaking box office opening weekend in 2022, we saw lots of headlines like this. Critics just wouldn't allow this movie to proceed into week 2 untarnished. And when you contrast that suspicious reception with the universal praise these same critics lavished and slobbered upon a more recent, openly anti-American film, the financial disaster that was One Battle After Another, a story which reverentially elevated domestic terrorism against the United States as virtuous and heroic, well, you can't help but ask questions about a critic's double standard when they use this word propaganda. One critic even called this failed DiCaprio flick, this dramatization of the violent Marxist revolutionaries who called themselves the Weather Underground in the 1970s, a quote, prescription for how to make our country better, and a rallying cry. A rallying cry? To do what exactly, Richard? Follow suit? Bomb federal buildings? Attack police officers? Obstruct them in the course of their duty? Perhaps this rallying cry line from critics was in retaliation to conservative influencers who mocked this Paul Thomas Anderson movie's utterly dismal return on investment and summarized it as dangerous propaganda for the modern radical left, excusing and rationalizing terrorist actions of the past to encourage them towards further violence against the federal officers of Immigration and Customs Enforcement in the present day.
Oh my gosh. Like, again, you can make excuses for it, but basically the thing's an apologia for radical left-wing terrorism. That's what it is. And any attempts to paint it as more complex than that, I think are overdoing it.
In short, the word propaganda has become just another cudgel with which to strike our perceived enemies in our political and cultural divide. When we like a movie's message, when it fits our worldview of the current zeitgeist, which direction we think the country should be going in, we label it as a wake-up call and vital truth-telling. When we don't, we call it propaganda.
And that also is very convenient.
That being established, the question for us now is, what will the third installment of Top Gun look like? More importantly, what will it feel like? How will it resonate with us as the audience? What conversations will it spawn from the theater to the parking lot? Will Top Gun 3 continue to celebrate American ingenuity and exceptionalism, or will this third story reverse course and humiliate Maverick in his closing episode, as we have seen with all the other deconstructed heroes of our past, including James Bond, Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Indiana Jones, Captain Picard, Apollo Creed, and Doctor Who? Now, you can already find plenty of videos online predicting the return of Top Gun's cast members, their story arcs, and the conflict we can anticipate. But that's not what this video is about. We're going to talk about theme, the context and delivery of this next chapter in the Top Gun universe, the subtext of values and morality we can expect if its team of creators stay the course and maintain the creative control they had before. And therefore, the movie remains untouched by studio interference initiatives such as DEI.
And the small kangaroo in her pouch said,
Me too.
A quick spoiler warning, since we'll be using the first two films to predict the third. Here are the top 5 returning themes we can expect if creative control is maintained. Theme 1, sacrifice. Camaraderie, commitment, the willingness to give up your life for your brother in arms, for the innocent, for your country, for an idea greater and more eternal than yourself. That's what makes a war story resonate long after the credits roll. The last 20 minutes of Fury or Saving Private Ryan are what keep those movies alive in our memory and make them rewatchable. But sacrifice doesn't necessarily have to mean killed in action. Unlike the original 1986 movie, aside from Iceman dying of natural causes, Top Gun Maverick ends without a single American casualty. No one on Maverick's team dies in battle. And that's not because the filmmakers were trying to be lighthearted. Maverick and Rooster both risked death to save each other in turn. But it was a necessary component of Maverick's story arc that he couldn't lose somebody again if he was to return as an instructor. Even if their target was destroyed, mission accomplished, the loss of a single pilot in Maverick's eyes would have meant absolute failure.
Even if I could teach it, it's not what Rooster wants. It's not what the Navy wants. That's why they canned me the last time.
And yet, even with a 0 American body count, the theme of sacrifice is woven far more consistently through the 2022 sequel than the original 80s story. In the opening scene, just before Maverick disobeys orders to stand down and takes the Dark Star to Mach 10, Hondo, his second-in-command, says,
Maverick, Kane just pulled up to the gate. It's not too late to stop, buddy. You know what happens to you if you go through with this.
I know what happens to everyone else if I don't.
I've read critical reviews which negate this as a sacrifice because Maverick's impulsivity ultimately destroyed the Dark Star itself by pushing it too far. They must have overlooked the very next scene, in which Admiral Kane confirms that Maverick bought his men more time.
All you did was buy some time for those men out there. The future is coming, and you're not in it.
It's not just Maverick's role as a pilot, which is under threat of obsolescence and extinction. It's his entire team. The Navy is looking to replace them with drones and AI. It's not just because he's a daredevil that Hondo has so much admiration for Maverick.
It's been an honor, Captain.
Secondly, the central conflict of Maverick is his tumultuous relationship with Rooster. For the first half of the movie, we're left wondering, why would Maverick pull Rooster's papers?
Why'd you pull my papers at the Academy? Why did you stand in my way?
You weren't ready.
Why would he hold him back from advancing his career? If there's no other reason than Maverick's guilt over Goose's death, this could come off as presumptuous, even condescending on Maverick's part.
Goose, you're gonna have to punch us out. I can't reach the ejection handle. Eject! I'm trying. Eject! Watch the canopy!
Rooster's entire life was put on pause, and he's justifiably furious about it. It's only that we find out later that Maverick was following his own orders when he tried to ground Rooster. It was the dying wish of Rooster's widowed mother that he never die in combat like his father did. Maverick sacrificed his image in Rooster's eyes, sacrificed the potential of their relationship so as not to soil Rooster's memory of his own mother. He shifted the blame to himself and never told Rooster about her request.
She made me promise before she died, so...
Does Rooster know that?
He will always resent me for what I did. Why should he resent her too?
In the third installment, sacrifice will inevitably be once again a consistent through line, but it's far more likely that giving up his own life for his country will be Maverick's final military action. I just don't see him returning to this character in his 70s, like Stallone did with John Rambo. The only question is, how's he gonna go out? Theme 2, Pride and Humility.
I don't like you because you're dangerous.
That's right. Ice, man. I am dangerous.
I read a book about Zen Buddhism once that said hope and fear are the same emotion, or figuratively, two sides of the same coin. Whatever you hope for, you fear will not happen. What you fear losing, you hope to retain. Pride and humility have a similar relationship, and even the bravest and most heroic of men fluctuate between the two throughout their lives. As a plot device, it's what humanizes them, makes them relatable. In the Top Gun universe, every character once prideful experiences humility and is transformed by it. In 1986, Iceman was brash, conceited, and overbearing.
Man, you want to know who the best is? That's him, Iceman.
30 years later, with him now elevated to the rank of Admiral, the sequel may have only exacerbated those qualities in him were he not crippled by disease. Now quiet and contemplative, weakened by his illness to the point where it hurts to speak, Iceman's transformation as a champion for Maverick, the only man in a position of authority with any faith in the renegade pilot, it humanizes the character of Ice enormously.
Well, then let me be perfectly blunt. You are not my first choice. In fact, you aren't even on a list. You were here at the request of Admiral Kosinski. Now, Iceman happens to be a man I deeply admire, and he seems to think that you have something left to offer the Navy. What that is, I can't imagine.
And Val Kilmer's real-life deterioration made the reunion between these two former rivals all the more compelling. Maverick's confidence was restored by the same man who once went out of his way to tear the protagonist down.
Hangman, you look good.
Well, I am good, Rooster. I'm very good. In fact, I am too good to be true.
Who the hell are you?
Hangman is, of course, the cinematic equivalent of both Maverick and Iceman's younger selves. Boastful and self-aggrandizing, quick to abandon his allies in the air when they hesitate or can't keep up, he personifies the danger of egocentrism and overconfidence.
You're looking at the only naval aviator on active duty with a confirmed air-to-air kill.
Stop.
Charming as he was, he still needed to be grounded, diminished in the movie's climax for the sake of learning humility. And it's fitting that his sole military action is to save Rooster, whom he had dismissed as too slow and intimidated him for most of the movie.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your savior speaking.
Ultimately, this has set up Hangman as a vital team player in the third installment.
The end is inevitable, Maverick. Your kind is headed for extinction.
Last, Maverick's pride is tested throughout the sequel with ageist discrimination, told that he's outdated, ancient, and obsolete.
Lieutenant?
We're going into combat, son, on a level no living pilot's ever seen. Not even him.
Maverick's methods and experience, his expertise are questioned and mocked by his superiors, but careful writing and direction keeps the filmmakers from overstepping their bounds into deconstruction. Unlike the emasculation we see in other franchises, while Maverick may be temporarily degraded in the sequel, in the end, he proves everyone who doubted him to be wrong, while still remaining a sympathetic protagonist. He's no longer the hotshot looking for glory in 1986. Now he's only looking for redemption.
I'm glad we got that straight.
Dating way back to 1862, with the publication of Victor Hugo's Les Miserables, humility lies at the very core of a character's yearning for redemption. It resonates with us so deeply, the acknowledgement that we've done something wrong for which we must atone. It's a universally appealing aspiration for a protagonist, and the pride-humility dynamic will no doubt be further developed for Maverick himself in the third installment.
Thank you for saving my life. That's what my dad would have done.
Theme 3, Fathers Are Vital. In an era of Hollywood wherein men, but especially fathers and husbands, are routinely dismissed, marginalized, or mocked as useless and unnecessary.
See this? That means not welcome.
Top Gun Maverick was such a refreshing deviation from the norm. The contention that fathers are vital to a man's life is a central theme at the crux of the sequel. Rooster was deeply traumatized by the loss of his dad at such a young age, and Maverick's guilt over Goose's death leads him into the agonizing decision of, on one hand, risking the life of his surrogate son by enlisting him in a suicidally dangerous mission, or on the other, losing his last chance to be forgiven by Rooster for holding him back for the last decade.
We made it to the target.
And superior enemy aircraft intercepted you on your way out.
Then it's a dogfight.
Against fifth-generation fighters.
It's not the planes, sir. It's the pilot.
Exactly.
In that incredible scene between Iceman and Maverick, when the former types on the screen,
"It's time to let go,"
he's not just talking about guilt. He's talking about Maverick's role as Rooster's surrogate father. The toughest part of being a dad is allowing the son you love to take risks, even if that means risking mistakes that could jeopardize his future, or in Rooster's case, his very life. Under the canopy, Rooster calls on the spirit of his birth father to give him strength.
"Talk to me, Dad."
Come on, kid, you can do it. Don't think. Just do it.
But it's only by following Maverick's lead, following his impulsivity, that Rooster is galvanized and finally breaks free of the hesitation and fear. Only after being fortified by his surrogate father can Rooster succeed, not only in the mission, but in saving Maverick from his own death.
I saved your life! I saved your life. That's the whole point. What the hell were you even thinking?
You told me not to think.
We can expect this father-son dynamic, this bond of reciprocal guidance and trust, to return in the third installment. Only next time it's likely that Rooster will be in the position of leadership. Maverick will have to trust him enough to follow.
Who'd you piss off this time?
Another admiral.
Exactly.
Are you mad at me?
Oh, Pete. I can never stay mad at you. That's the problem.
Theme 4. Behind every good man. There are two women in Maverick's life presented in the sequel, Penny and Phoenix. The title card at the beginning of the movie reminds us that the Top Gun Academy represents the elite of the elite, the top 1% of all fighter pilots in the country. If you couple that statistic with the fact that less than 8% of real-life American fighter pilots are women, then the character of Phoenix is more than just exceptional. She's a unicorn. But the filmmakers seem to recognize this. There was no way they would allow a female pilot to be so conspicuous and extraordinary, to get this far only to be grounded. She had to be enlisted into Maverick's Fox team.
Choose your two Foxtrot teams.
Payback and Fanboy. Phoenix and Bob.
But this served a dual purpose that sets up a theme for the third installment. Phoenix had to earn her place in the second movie to take a more prominent position in the third. The filmmakers anticipated the backlash of accusations that they were engaging in identity politics or tokenism, so they ensured that no one would accuse Phoenix of being a Mary Sue, the pejorative for a female character that is naturally better than men for her innate characteristics, and whose only flaw is being held back by phantom, obsolete terms such as misogyny and patriarchy. That's not Phoenix. She isn't just naturally better than her male counterparts.
Time to teach you a lesson. You're out, Phoenix. Son of a bitch!
And she doesn't have any snappy quips intended to deride or demoralize the male members of her team. Even when Hangman goes on the attack, she maintains dignity.
He called you a man, Phoenix. You gonna take that?
So long as he doesn't call you a man.
Like Demi Moore in G.I. Jane, she's not there to change the Navy, but to serve it, without complaint. She earned her place as the one of 4 pilots among 12 that Maverick could lean on for support. Phoenix encapsulates perfectly the meritocracy audiences love to see in war stories. She earned our respect. That's why we can expect her to be within the point of the spear in the third movie. As for Penny Benjamin,
don't give me that look.
The sequel's not afraid to present the idea overtly, that the companionship of a supportive, maternal, nurturing, and beautiful woman is Maverick's reward at the end of his redemption arc. If you want to laugh, read the interview that Kelly McGillis gave when asked why she wasn't approached to reprise her role as flight instructor Charlie Blackwood. The self-depreciating McGillis comically answered, "I'm too old and too fat," and that's not what that whole scene is about. Lest we forget, McGillis, now 68, is 5 years older than Tom Cruise.
Time just gets away from us.
When Maverick is at his lowest point, just after Iceman dies and he feels like he's failing the Navy, Penny's the one person who restores Maverick's confidence. It's both rare and refreshing in a 21st century movie to see a man and woman in a traditional romance as their natural counterparts, rather than competition for each other. Penny builds Maverick back up again from defeat, and men and women alike love to see this on screen. Behind every successful man, whether he's a fighter pilot or a novelist, is the woman who believes in him, encourages him at every turn, the one that defends him to others in his absence, and elevates his reputation to his contemporaries, and more importantly, to his children. Stephen King said it best in his book on writing. Whenever I see a first novel dedicated to a wife or a husband, I smile and think, there's someone who knows. Writing is a lonely job. Having someone who believes in you makes a lot of difference. They don't have to make speeches. Just believing is usually enough. We can expect more moments like the best of what we saw between Penny and Maverick in the third movie. But it will most likely be Rooster with a love interest this time around, someone who needs him to come home to her and perhaps to his children, safely, raising the stakes for his involvement in the next mission.
You are America's best. Make us proud.
Theme 5, America First. When I saw Top Gun Maverick in the theater, I looked around at the audience every time someone appeared at the podium with that gigantic American flag backdrop behind him. In an age where we see our flag trampled, burned, hung upside down, and otherwise disrespected, it felt great to see people smiling in the theater every time the Stars and Stripes was dignified on screen. Every placement of the flag in the Top Gun sequel is intentional. The flag appears behind the podium in the hangar to remind the pilots of the principles for which they will be risking death. It appears on Penny's sailboat amidst an open sea to symbolize the rags to riches phenomenon, the potential of new beginnings. And it appears outside her house to represent the fulfillment of companionship and purpose in a home, the comfort of domesticity, a wife and children. But more than the flag, it's the American ideals showcased in Top Gun Maverick which resonate with people most deeply. Respect for tradition, respect for one's elders.
Chalk yourself another kill. That makes 2.
Mav has 5. Makes him an ace.
Respect for meritocracy and the example America should set for the world. The movie doesn't apologize for putting Americans first or for framing American might and power as extraordinary because Cruise and Kosinski realize that America has nothing to apologize for. Our virtues far exceed our faults. And for those who want to dwell on America's shortcomings, the filmmakers acknowledge that Americans can see their country trashed and belittled literally everywhere else. The news, social media, academia. People don't need or want to hear about that when they're paying $16 to escape into a fantasy for 2 hours. Last, the character of Maverick himself is allegorical to American values. The story goes that development of a Top Gun sequel was grounded with the untimely death of Tony Scott in 2012. Joseph Kosinski revitalized the idea with Tom Cruise specifically because he wanted the next chapter to be titled Top Gun Maverick and not Top Gun 2. Respect for Top Gun as a character-driven story and not an intellectual property with interchangeable parts and characters is the only reason that Cruise agreed to it. So why is the word Maverick in the title? What does Maverick actually mean? The most common definition of the word is a person who shows independence of thought and action, especially by refusing to adhere to the policies of a group to which he belongs. That attitude of rebellion, of being descended from men who would not be ruled, is woven into our DNA as Americans and exemplified in Maverick's every action and decision. A steadfast commitment and willingness to die for one's country, coupled with the libertarian, revolutionary spirit of independence that says, I will not be contained, not be defined, or silenced, or held back by your preconceptions, the parameters you have set for my life or my potential.
Will someone shut that man up?
Never! Never!
It's been so long, almost 250 years precisely, that Americans forget something vital about our founding fathers. Every one of them was risking a painful death by signing the Declaration of Independence. Had they lost the war, every man among them would have been captured and hung by the neck until dead. And outside of Boston, the worst which most of them could expect to suffer had they remained complacent was high taxes and the stifling of criticism against the crown. And yet they all risked execution for an idea they believed greater than their own short lives. Maverick's story arc reflects a respect for our shared history, for legacy, the recognition that progress as a country doesn't mean dismissing our ancestors as inconsequential, or far worse, some kind of embarrassing mistake. Captain Maverick's reputation as a pilot is under threat, not only from the Navy's constantly advancing technology, but also by his age gap with the millennial pilots he is charged with training. And yet it's from men of his own generation or older that Maverick is slighted as a relic, a dinosaur, outdated and obsolete.
I'm where I belong, sir. Well, the Navy doesn't see it that way. Not anymore.
The pilots under his instruction never disrespect him that way. There's no jabs about him being an old man past his prime. No sequence in which a trio of young aces disparage him for not retiring already. What this means for the final installment, the lead character's swan song, is that we're not going to see him get punched in the face by his apprentice like Indiana Jones, or bested by someone with superior abilities who learned his same skills within a fraction of the time. It is very likely, therefore, now that he has cemented his legacy, Maverick will sacrifice his life in a way that immortalizes him forever in the hearts of his contemporaries. But I could be wrong.
I was wrong. Wrong. You ain't never been right. About nothing.
If you made it to the end, I thank you for listening. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think will happen in the sequel? Am I misinterpreting the story's themes in any way? And if you dug my spiel, I made a similar analysis about what everybody missed in the movie that launched Miles Teller's career, Whiplash. Just click the video on your screen right now.